let's jump back into the program. We're going to talk about the AI revolution and the risks and rewards that come with it. Please welcome our speakers, Professor Lilac Al-Safadi, the Chief Executive Officer of Iconic Educational Holding, Teresa Carlson, the President of the General Catalyst Institute, Harmeen Mehta, the Chief Digital and Innovation Officer at Equinix. She is also a director on the UK Parliament's Digital Board and on the board of Lloyds Banking, and Arti Ramamurthy, a startup investor, product executive, and founder and host of a very popular tech podcast. Please welcome them to the stage. So, I think she'll have this. Okay.
Mike, yeah.
We will have one more. Save the best for last, right?
Yes.
You're all amazing. You are all spectacular. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started, and Lilac will join us as soon as she can. I want to start by actually just bringing up, last week there was to talk about setting the stage for a conversation on AI. We saw U.S. President Trump's visit to the region. Huge bets on AI, I think, was one of the main takeaways from the series of meetings that took place here. I think probably all of my guests here. Welcome, Lilac.
Yeah. Yay.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us. So I think all of our speakers here would agree that AI is the future, but maybe you have different perspectives on sort of how to get there. Arti, I want to start with you. Your husband, actually, speaking of the tech podcast, was out here last week.
We can blame it all on him.
That's right, yes, yeah. And I know you've both worked in AI, invested in AI, and I just want to start by asking you, where are you seeing the most opportunities for growth right now? What's really taking root?
It's a great question to kick it off with. First of all, thank you for having me here. This is such a great panel, just in awe of all the people here. My panelists are amazing. AI, we are still in the early days. I know it's been a few years of us, trying out new technology, of seeing adoption, but we're still in the very, very early days. Where we are seeing the most traction right now is very low-hanging fruit, right? Like large enterprises, specifically around areas like customer support, retail operations, marketing, things like that, where there are like large, like enormous tranches of data, where you have to do workflow management, things like that. Then you're seeing innovation in software engineering, co-pilots, you're having your AI coder, developer. All of these, I think, I say it is early because we are still in the areas where very engineering-centric problems that are getting solved right now. And I think the wave that we are going to see is going to be massive, where we're going to see adoption not just in pure tech, pure engineering, but just vastly pervasive in everyday, daily walks of life. I kind of like to think AI as this rising tide that lifts all boats. And so we're going to see various sectors, pretty much every sector, starting to gain from this and innovate.
By the way, I do love this new term, vibe coding, which
yes.
is, how many of you have heard of? Yes, okay. Do you want to explain real quick? I mean, you kind of touched on it.
Vibe coding started out as this sort of tongue-in-cheek post on X by this Google engineer, OpenAI engineer, where he basically said, and he's a prolific developer, and he basically was like, these days I don't even write code. I just like fire up, my AI coding tool, and I just vibe code with it, and I just say, this is what I want to build, and it sort of types itself out and builds out these HTML pages and fixes bugs, and I don't even think about it, and I'm just vibing with it, just like how you would think about any sort of creative act, right? And it started, and it was very much like in jest, and it took off and became this viral thing, and now everybody is vibe coding.
Yes.
But I think it's great. Like, there's a lot of cynicism and skepticism about it of course, these annoying vibe coders. They're not the true developers. But I think this is the best thing. Now, everybody can be an engineer. Everybody can be a software developer. Everybody can prototype really, really fast. And that time to prototyping, pushing it to production. And look, this used to take weeks and weeks and weeks. Like, we've all worked in companies where development cycles used to take so long to get it in front of customers, and now it can be hours, it can be minutes. And so I'm a big fan of this way where anyone can be an engineer, anyone can vibe code, can prototype, get it in front of customers, test, get feedback, and start building.
Great, and I know you have a little bit of news to share. I'll come back to you soon on that. Lilac, I want to go to you. So speaking of everything that took place here last week, I'm curious to hear your take on these deals that we saw, this collaboration between the US and Saudi Arabia. How critical is that to the Vision 2030 plan? And also, what does it say about kind of broader collaboration that's needed for AI?
Well, absolutely. First of all, I'm very happy and I'm very proud to be part of this amazing gathering. We're discussing AI revolution not from a hype perspective, but as a deep, complex technology that's currently transforming our lives. So going back to your question, it's very important to recognize that Saudi Arabia has an ambitious goal of becoming one of the top 15 AI nations by 2030. And we are well on our way. So in the past few years, we have trained more than 60,000 AI professionals and data scientists. We have launched one of the national predictive analytic platform in the public services. In fact, we have also kicked off the world's first cognitive city, not even smart city, but a cognitive city that fully integrates AI in its infrastructure. And these are only a glimpse of the future we are creating today in Saudi Arabia. So last week, yes, we have welcomed US visionary partners from leaders of AI company, Silicon Valley investors, Nobel Prize winners. And what they really saw in Saudi Arabia wasn't just a market, but a movement. A nation where ideas scale, where talents thrive, where passion meets opportunity. And all of this has been reflected in wonderful investments and landmark agreements. So some of the agreements where they have agreed on a shared research hub. They've also agreed on data sharing corridors. They've also committed to developing the next generation of AI talents in Saudi Arabia. And also even the US tech giant companies such as AMD, Google, Amazon, they have joined us in our movement. So we've seen them putting a lot of investments in Saudi infrastructure, in our talents, in our solutions. With all the spirit also, there was the announcement of Humane. So if you've heard of it. So Humane is basically, it's a Saudi-born company with a global-minded AI company that is deeply rooted in principles of humanity, innovation, and accessibility. And what's really unique about Humanity that was announced last week is it really represents the Saudi culture identity, and it's fully aligned with our principle of people comes first. So I think with all of this momentum that happened last week, all of this really aligned with our commitment in Saudi Arabia of becoming an AI global hub by 2030, driving sovereign innovation and also building economic resilience. So last week was really amazing with all the announcement that we've heard, and with all the commitment from the US, which really deepened our relationship between Saudi Arabia and the United States as the leader today in AI. And honestly, if you would have asked me the same question a few years ago, I would have thought that I would have answered a different way. But I think today, with all the momentum, with the partnership that happened, with all the actions, and with the results on the ground, I think we're no longer imagining Saudi Arabia as a global AI hub, but we're actually building it.
Teresa, you've been coming here for a long time. You've also worked with many governments in various roles, including at AWS for years. Give us your impressions of what took place last week, and again, what it means kind of within the broader context of building out this AI future, what that's going to take.
Well, I have to say, I was giddy, honestly. And I want to say, I'm so happy to see Fortune here. Seeing Lubna on the stage, I shared with Mihal earlier, when I started coming here in 2013, Lubna was one of the very first women who opened her arms and introduced me to so many people. And I actually put the Middle East in my business plan at AWS in 2011. I put Africa and the Middle East, and I said, if we don't build hyperscale regions in the Middle East and Africa, we are missing a huge part of the world. And I saw back then that we needed to also have the allied partnerships from a U.S. perspective. You can't ignore this part of the world. You can't ignore the absolute power and wealth, and also not just that, but the resilience. And I want to say something. I believe, I don't know if these statistics are still exactly the same, but when I was coming here, I spent a lot of time in Saudi, Bahrain, and the UAE. And between like 2013 and 2019, when I was here, there was about 60%, it was about 60% of the workforce, they were women doing most of the hard coding here. I don't know if that's still
And they weren't vibe coding back then.
They weren't vibe coding, no, and they were doing all the hard cybersecurity work too here. So the women here are smart and beautiful, I like to say, because they really have the whole package when you come here. But I think what we saw last week was pretty incredible. The Middle East overall has really been talking about making this happen, this vision now. But the last few years, you've really seen them kick it in. And I will just have to say, I'm so impressed by the progress that's been made here and the openness to partnerships and build. And what do you need to be one of the top countries in the world globally to be an AI leader? It is, I'll call it top to bottom. You have to think about everything from the early days of education, training, and enablement to the right policies. And I'm at General Catalyst today as an investor and running our Public Policy Institute globally. And we like to talk about, you need capital to deploy well. You need the right technologies to invest in and the people to help drive that. And then if you don't have the right policies, it can really stagnate that entire effort around innovation. And what you saw again with President Trump coming here and all the top business leaders, I was blown away as I saw him march up and all talk to MBS and really get into the vibe of what's going to happen here. But you could see that everybody's coming to the table to say, let's make this work with the openness. And I do believe that Saudi Arabia can be one of the top countries in the world because, again, they have the resilience, they have the space, they have the ability to also for energy, and also with the new diffusion policy that President Trump just passed last week or the week before, it gives, again, that opportunity for sovereignty of chips, which is going to make a big difference.
Great, thank you, Teresa. Okay, Harmeen, over to you. You're in a very interesting industry that's very critical also to the advancement of AI. But I'm curious if you can give kind of impressions both internally about within the company, how you're operating and the role that AI plays today, and externally what you see. What's actually, and we're talking about a lot of stuff that's out in the future and is being worked on. What's working today? What's kind of leading to actual?
First of all, I want to thank everybody who's loving and using AI, because the more you love and use it, the more you help my company, so thank you. Equinix is right at the heart of it. I mean, we build the digital infrastructure of the world, one of the largest digital infrastructure companies. And it is amazing how much we have had to change. Mm-hmm. See, the energy consumption, ChatGPT consumes 10x the same amount of energy as Google search. And at one point, we all used to think Google search is the biggest energy consumer in the world, no longer so. And that's why the amount of investment that's going in liquid cooling, et cetera, it's not just for advancement of technology. It's going to make it necessary because it has 3,000 times the power to actually cool the systems than air cooling. So it's AI, and it's a lot of things around AI. The whole technology field, the energy field, both have to go hand in hand and parallel. Otherwise, we actually will reach a point where we'll have a lot of ideas. We wouldn't be able to make them work because we wouldn't have the physical infrastructure. So the innovation that needs to be done both in energy and AI needs to happen together. My perspective on, I think AI is actually subtly becoming really mainstream without many people even realizing. Mm-hmm. For the first time, technology is speaking the human language. I mean, I started coding when I was 11, and all my career, I have learned the language of technology. Mm-hmm. For the first time, tech is speaking my language. And that is what changes for the masses. You don't need to be an expert in order to use AI. Every time you're opening an Amazon app, you're interacting with AI. Every time you open Netflix, you interact with AI. So we're actually subtly using it every single day. Inside companies, I think it's probably the power of human intelligence and artificial intelligence is going to create a super intelligence in even your average employees. It lifts the performance of every employee. And I think that's the power. You're seeing it across the board. I mean, we're doing propensity modeling on helping salespeople even predict where to go and sell, at what time, and what to say to the customer, the exact pricing, the modeling of how liquid cooling should flow through the data center, how to actually stack up the racks, how to physically allocate, how to assign the tasks for everyday engineers. It's across even the cabinets, micromanaging the capacity, not managing the capacity which humans do, to get the most out of energy, to get the most out of infrastructure, to get the most out of hardware, and to get the most out of software. It's a very different field. These problems did not exist a few years back. So I think humanity is going to change in a very different way. And there are some jobs AI is going to get better at, and there are many new jobs that are actually coming into stream today. All these problems I've talked about, which is to solve for the AI world, they didn't exist 5 years ago. And that's why I couldn't have chosen a better profession, because it lets you reinvent yourself, reskill yourself every single day. Love it.
So, Aarti, there's a lot of conversation now in Silicon Valley, where I live, about sort of the future of companies, not just the future of work, but are the new companies in the future going to have just 5, 10 people and be able to build $1 billion company? Is that possible? What are you seeing? And I'm giving you a great little nudge here to give your news as an investor. What are you seeing in teams today, in leaders? How is it changing the kind of the human side of the picture?
Great. You did put it on a platter. And
yes, you're welcome. Eat it up.
I am an investor. We are announcing our new fund today, actually right now, and it's called Schema Ventures. Focus is investing in very, very early stage companies, and it's a global fund, right? We believe now, especially with this wave of AI, we see companies can not just be started in any part of the world, but can thrive, can scale and grow all over the world. So we are starting out a brand new fund, announcing it today. To your question, what are we seeing? In general, I mean, I tend to think less in sectors and more about just what are the themes that need to be true for AI companies. One, where there's a large volume of data. Think like big enterprises that's just been around for a long time, stuck in different data lakes, different data systems. That's like a prime candidate. Can AI come in and make things better? And we'll talk about what better is. But that's one big area. Two, places which require predictive analysis in the sense of like drug discovery or fraud detection in finance, pharma, things like that, where taking all this data, what do you infer from it? And inference is becoming more and more and more key and critical. So areas of that sort. And three, just massive tech plays, right? Like this is places where you have robotics, automation, autonomous vehicles. In the past, the training cost alone would have not been sustainable for a fund like mine, like an early stage fund, to go invest in these companies. But now, because of AI, the training costs have come so low. And now you're able to go build these and scale these. And then four, just companies that are global. I think Lilac rightly talked about the partnership that was announced last week. You're going to see a lot more of this. This has become such a global race of companies coming out of everywhere to go build and scale, especially places where there is labor shortage, skill shortage. Now you can leverage AI to be able to fill those gaps. So I start to think about like, what are these things that the tenets that have to be true for you to go build on top of that. And what we are seeing is verticals like finance, pharma, robotics, deep enterprises. I think Harmeet talked about sales and prospect analysis. So you're going to see each one of these verticals all start to lift up. But I tend to think about the fundamentals of what needs to be true for these to happen.
But I think
go ahead.
you're spot on. Because today, if you don't need 100 engineers to just build the first line of few codes to ship out a product, and you can rely on AI, and it can help you generate the visuals, so you don't need an army of designers, and it can help you co-vibe and copyright with you. So, and at the same time, produce a website and get it up and running. I absolutely think that this gives an advantage to startups like never before to be able to take on any large company. I mean, WhatsApp was probably the one who did it the best. They sold for nearly 22 billion, and there were 55 employees at that time. Imagine the productivity of each employee, what it would have been there, and this is going to beat that. So I absolutely think you're spot on. This is going to change the landscape of business like never before.
We see, I'll just say real quickly, at General Catalyst, we see a combination of these early, I'll call them AI native companies that started everything as AI. They build from the ground up. And then we also are seeing a really huge transformation of what we call more applied AI, which is where you're taking AI and actually putting it into the guts of a more traditional company to actually make it more productive, drive the usage of it, and that's a little bit more challenging. The opportunity is tremendous when you get it in there, but the challenge is retooling and rewrapping all those workers in a way that they really understand how to use AI, but the productivity boosts are off the charts.
Yeah. By the way, Lilac, very interesting, we don't have time to get into it, but posted a fascinating article about basically an experiment into creating a company that's entirely staffed by AI agents. I encourage you to look at her LinkedIn so you can find the article, because it did not work out so well. So, we still need both. But I want to ask you real quick, in the short amount of time we have left, what are you seeing as the most effective way of applying AI so far in your field, in education and business more broadly? Give us like 2 quick takeaways if you can.
Let me just briefly go through our experience in AI. I think it started in 2020 when we got hit by the pandemic, and we really had to move to virtual world. And this is where it really exposed new challenges that weren't before in the traditional world. So I remember that during the pandemic, we were really turning into AI to find solutions for the challenges that appeared in the new norm. But then post-pandemic, our thinking starts shifting from how can we use AI to survive to how can we use AI to thrive. And this is where we start thinking of AI not as a way to combat challenges, but actually to create values. And now the shift is not only how can we thrive, but also how can we reimagine our businesses in a way that really aligns with our belief. So in conclusion, I would like to say today, as everybody's mentioning, today with the advancements in AI technology, with the availability of data, with the maturity of the regulatory system, I think we all I would like to encourage everybody to start thinking big of AI. Let's reimagine our businesses, let's reimagine our industries, and start acting accordingly.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all of our panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.